Hi, everybody. I'm Ben Mankiewicz. I'm here with my guest, author and film historian Mark Harris. We're discussing the war documentaries of director George Stevens. Mark, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
Up next, a Stevens documentary short from 1945 detailing the Allied efforts to prosecute Nazi war criminals. It's That Justice Be Done. So, Mark, when Stevens gets to the camps, he didn't know what he would find there. He was among the first American soldiers to arrive at the camps.
Right, and certainly the first with a camera and a camera team, and it was just a couple of days since the Allies had gone into the camps. So, you know, his job through the war until that point had been as documentarian and propagandist, but really almost the minute he goes through the gates of Dachau, he kind of realized instinctively that his job was now to become a gatherer of evidence. You know, he knew that there would be trials. He knew that at least some people would be brought to justice, and he would have to film everything he could possibly film in order to aid that cause.
And he did. There were ghastly scenes, obviously, that we know about in large part because of George Stevens, but he didn't shy away from shooting them.
That's right, and in fact, he shot much of the harshest, most terrifying stuff himself. He wouldn't let his men do it.
You mentioned that Stevens had been a documentarian and propagandist up until that point. Was there some sort of switch that went off in him that he almost becomes a journalist then? At that point, a journalist and a prosecutor?
I think almost unconsciously, yes, because for one thing, the war was over. I mean, you know, not in the Pacific, but in Europe, Hitler had been defeated, and he must have known on some level that the need for propaganda, the need to, you know, advance the war effort was suddenly outmoded, but he also knew, I think just instinctively as a man with a camera in his hand, that he still had an absolutely invaluable role to play.
That thing you just mentioned, it says so much about the character of George Stevens, doesn't it, that he insisted on shooting that himself, that he was the guy in charge and he wasn't going to turn it over to someone else. And he was right. It affected him the rest of his life. It obviously would have affected anybody.
Yes, I mean, Stevens was willing to take on the personal and, in a way, the professional cost of doing what he chose to do, which was to film a great deal himself. And it's interesting to me that, you know, many of these directors that we've talked about, although they did extraordinary things in the war, had to embellish them a little bit in the telling. Stevens did not, and in fact, it was many, many years before he even talked about his experience filming at Dachau and what he saw there and what he felt there.
What are we going to see here? We are not going to see the hour-long film that Stevens shot that was presented at evidence at the trial.
No, we're going to see a short movie that was actually was a kind of propaganda or war effort movie that was just designed to bring home to American civilians the importance of bringing Nazi war criminals to justice.
All right, Mark, thank you very much. From 1945, directed by George Stevens, produced by Ray Kellogg, here's That Justice Be Done.